and I usually try to go according to the script, but I'm going to go against the grain this morning. I think this particular issue to be so egregious that I have to address it, because I deem it to be so egregious. And had I been here last week, Friday, I would have. Big up to Sir Cliff, yeah, and the team. Not out in Jamaica land we love for a little while. Hopefully we'll be back soon, yeah. But so I think there was an OB last week, so I wasn't in. But this issue concerning the rural school bus system, and I thank you, Lady Nora, reminding me that it was last week. Now, a lot has been said about the rural school bus system. And let me just say right off the bat that I think it's a grand program, and one that I hope works and it receives all the necessary support to survive the long haul. But there is one particular comment that I want to revisit on this issue that I found to be particularly egregious, and every well-thinking Jamaican should condemn this. There's a video I want to play, and I sent it to you, Lady Nora. It has to do with Senator and his opposition, Senator Peter Bunting, and his remarks on the school bus system. Of course, the PNP has come out swinging against the rural school bus system. And it is all reportage that an unrepentant Peter Bunting said he would not withdraw what Nationwide described as scathing comments he made about the government's rural school bus program. And he, speaking at the People's National Party, PNP, meeting in Christiana, Senator Bunting, this is recently, said he would not allow his children to ride on what he described as old buses. Yeah, so he made the remarks, it sparked some amount of controversy, and the goodly senator says he would not be withdrawing. So before we go to that clip, I want you to play that video for me where the remarks were made by the opposition Senator Peter Bunting. Let's have a listen at what he said.
By used car for police to embarrass them out the road. And now we see him buy used school bus to go kill off with school picnic them. I can tell you, them said I must send one to South Manchester. When I look, me see social media, say if you take one off of the wharf, them have to use wrecker, take it off of the wharf. Anyhow, you put school picnic at that, and you send them up a Pusey Hill, Victoria Town, Cross Keys, you're begging for trouble and some old bus. But it's just a PR stunt. Because right now, the labor ranks will promise anything. They will promise you everything. If Roger Clark was here, he would say, they would, if you complain, say Falmouth hot, then we promise for air condition Falmouth.
I want you to play again for me, studio, just the opening stanza of that clip there from Senator Bunting, up to the point where he says that the school buses would kill off the children of the poor. Can you play it one more time for me?
By used car for police to embarrass them out the road. And now we see him buy used school bus to go kill off with school picnic them.
So the government is being accused of buying used school bus to kill off the picnic them. This is coming from a sitting senator of what is supposed to be the more cerebral of the two chambers, the upper house of Parliament. And I want you to all hear me well out there in Radioland and, of course, on the internet as well, on YouTube, and wherever you get your nationwide news content. Hear me very well. It is a national disgrace for a sitting senator, a member of the upper house of parliament, emphasis on the word upper, to come to the public and state without a shred of actionable evidence that the buses purchased by the government to remedy what is a long-standing malady are going to kill off the children of largely the poor Jamaicans who will utilize the system. And when confronted with how indecent his remarks were, a sitting senator says he will not be withdrawing those remarks. And I think we have that clip, Lady Nora. Do you want to play that clip from the news story with him saying he'll not be withdrawing the remarks?
Yes, I raised the alarm and one so we don't want to kill off poor people picking with some old bus. And I make no apology for that. And let me just give you some background. These buses that they're bringing in, these are not pre-owned vehicles. These are retired old buses. Many are over 10 to 15-year-old with hundreds of thousands of miles on the clock. So when I sound the alarm, me not care what the labor rights say or who they say we are. Yes, I raised the alarm and one.
Thank you.
So we don't want to kill off.
Thank you very much, studio. The voice there of opposition Senator Peter Bunting. That sort of fear-mongering from the perch of his own luxury vehicle is unacceptable. And it should be the view of every well-thinking Jamaican that people who engage in this kind of activity do not deserve to sit in the Honorable House of Parliament. They don't deserve to see the inside of it, let alone to sit in it. It is a national disgrace that a sitting senator would make such an unsubstantiated claim, backed up by no evidence whatsoever. With that weighty issue aside, the PMP then comes to the table with a proposal that clearly is bereft of the intellectual rigor required to run a country properly. Their solution to this malady of transportation, particularly for rural school children, wants to involve the people, many of whom are part of the problem already. The populist solution they've proffered is to throw money at the problem. And people in opposition very often tend to do that too. Very often it is well thought out systems that are needed to address systemic issues and not merely the transfer of cash. And the transportation of rural school children is a long-standing issue. It's a long-standing problem that successive governments have failed to address. It is now being addressed by the current administration. And this is the posture that the opposition has taken towards it. I mean, I can understand criticism like the buses are old and so on and so forth, but to go to the extreme of fear-mongering, telling largely poor Jamaicans, do not allow your children to go on this bus, because that's what Senator Bunting is doing in these buses, because they're designed, they're rigged to take the lives of your children. I want you to pause and think about the seriousness of that, you know. Pause and think about the seriousness of it. This problem of rural transportation for children, like I said earlier, isn't new. It's not new. And I would much prefer to come before this microphone to hold Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness and his JLP administration accountable, because governments are elected to govern and they ultimately hold the reins of power. But the opposition PNP keeps stuff that causes you to scratch your head. It is better for governance, I think, for us to hold the people who've been elected and who hold the reins of power to account. Form part of the governance structure of the country. Ability, and where the rubber hits the road. You really want to be holding the government accountable, but the PNP keep doing silly stuff that causes you to have to be and to hold them accountable. It is absolutely not is trying to spread fear among Jamaicans by telling them that the buses brought in to transport their children to school at a much more cost-effective rate, because the rate of how much money they're paying to get transportation to school. And I've seen some of the Vox pops in recent times where they go and canvass the views of people in rural Jamaica. I saw one recently, and the amount of money one mother said her son had to pay to get to and from school. It's quite significant. And I gather one trip on one of these school buses costs $50. So bringing that figure down to $100. And here we have a senator. You know, being a senator used to be a respectable office, you know. But when you have people like Peter Bunting dragging the office of the senator through the mud like this, it cannot be seen as acceptable. The PNP needs to do better. And that goes without saying. And Peter Bunting needs to withdraw this. And where are the in the upper house? Very close friends with the president of the party, so that might never happen. This is Cliff Hughes Online. We've gone past our first break. Let's take the break and come. When I was here last, Warmington, Everett Warmington, member of Parliament Everett Warmington, had to apologize for using a string of expletives on the political platform. I roundly condemned the actions of Everett Warmington, because this isn't his first indiscretion. Mr. Warmington is known to be a bit of a loose lip that sinks ships. They're very disrespectful. It's not really what you expect from an elected public representative. Now, there are people who say Mr. Warmington is a good member of parliament. I can't attest to that. I don't live in the constituency in which he serves. And I've also heard some of my colleagues who cover the parliament who say Mr. Warmington he knows the standing orders more than most. But Mr. Warmington has been known to commit these kinds of egregious breaches, to be rather disrespectful in his conduct. And so I wrongly condemned Mr. Warmington. But Mr. Warmington apologized for the remarks. I also called out the leadership of the JP for not addressing the matter publicly distancing themselves from it directly, frontally. Of course, the Prime Minister wrote a letter to his party addressing broadly issues of decorum. I don't think that was sufficient, and I stand by that. But in the intervening period, the leader of the People's National Party, and again, you know, when I come before this microphone of Nationwide 90 FM, I prefer to hold the government to account. And if the PNP were in power, it's the same posture I'd have. I'd prefer to hold those who've been elected to office to account. The president of the People's National Party, Mark Golding, had his own incident on stage where he used an expletive. And I want to play the video and then come back and offer some remarks.
We're saying, Anne, are you ready for Iman, Marketing, Ma Jefferson Golding? Yo. Well, you look like you're ready. You sound like you're ready. You feel like you're ready. And even though the mic not ready.
Yeah.
And even.
Yeah.
And even though the mic. Yo. Hey. One.
So there you have it. We didn't play it. I gather Cliff, when he addressed the matter, played it. But a couple of observations here, and I want to table how prime ministerial is probably not a word, but it communicates the thought. Mark Golding comes off. And I want to table that. Let's address him being frustrated with the microphone to the point where he uses an expletive. It ought to also be roundly condemned that the leader, this is not just a foot soldier, this is the leader of the People's National Party. And while I think it was Cliff who I was listening to earlier this week, I don't necessarily make a habit of listening to Sir Cliff. I'm just joking. Good morning to you, Sir Cliff. I trust you're well. And while I listened to Cliff's remarks, I couldn't help but think about, is this the individual that we want to represent us on the global stage? Does Mark Golding come across as being prime ministerial to you? And I thought about that long and hard. Does Mark Golding come across as being prime ministerial? In the immediate aftermath of the expletives uttered by Mr. Warmington, the General Secretary of the People's National Party, who came out swinging against Mr. Warmington, and I thought, again, the PNP not reading the room, being tone deaf, I would, if you're asking me from a purely communication standpoint, if I would recommend that this message be carried by Dr. Dayton Campbell, I wouldn't have. Dr. Dayton Campbell himself is subject to this foot-and-mouth disease. And he has been entirely egregious with some of his own remarks. They should have chosen someone else to carry this line to the public. But the PNP, as usual, didn't read the room or the rules. Now, he came out and he said if the police should prosecute Mr. Warmington, they should seek to arrest him, bring a charge against him. Following, and I said, if the police have the information that they need, they should. And I will put it on the table this morning that if the police are in possession of this evidence of Mark Golding using this expletive in public, he too should be charged. And I'm certain Dr. Dayton Campbell would support that if he wants to be consistent. I would love to hear the PNP General Secretary on that. Should the leader of his party be prosecuted for using that expletive? I gather Mark Golding has subsequently apologized, but he has gone on stage and he did in fact use the expletive because the mic wasn't functioning properly. And so to the authorities, if you're going to arrest not arrest, but charge Warmington for the use of his expletive, you should also charge Mark Golding as well. I see Shane Mark in the YouTube chat saying, Tyrone, both situations are different though. No, they are not, Mr. Shane. My brother, no. He cursed in public, just like Mr. Warmington did. And by the General Secretary of the PNP's logic and rubric and standards, very high standards, I must say, Mark Golding should also face the courts. And I would support that 100%, that Mark Golding should face the courts for using that expletive in public. And as we go to our next break, and then I want to address one other issue, and then we'll take your calls when we come back from the next break, God willing.